All right, guys. So today we're going to be talking about blocks, and this video is going to focus specifically on local blocks. So a block is essentially a grouping of elements, line elements, arc elements, that kind of nature. So if we kind of just take the line tool really quick, and I'm just going to draw, oops, line tool, and I'm just going to draw a bizarre little shape here. We have individual line segments, and we want to keep them grouped together. Now, one thing that we can do is we can use the group tool. Um, and the group tool is right here up on the ribbon. And I can group elements. So let me make a copy of this. So I'm going to Control C. Let me do this. I'm going to highlight everything, then Control C, Control V, and put it right next to it. So this first group, I'm going to group together, and it says select objects. So I'm just going to go ahead and make that selection. And I've selected my items that I want to group. I'm going to hit enter to basically make that into a group. So if I hover over it now, you'll notice that it says line, but all of the sides light up, meaning that they're going to be selected. So if I click on it, you'll notice that it's the entire selection. All the lines are indeed selected, and we have this little bounding box that you typically see when you group things together, for instance, in Microsoft Word or PowerPoint or something like that. Now, a block is going to be a little bit different. It basically will do the same thing in terms of, let me group a bunch of lines together so that they work together and act as one, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go up to the Insert tab. And in the Insert tab, I've got two panels, or palettes rather, that deal with blocks. So one is with blocks itself, and the second one is block definition. And where I want to go is the create block. All right. So again, we're worried about local blocks right now. So I'm going to use the create block tool. And what pops up is the block definition window. And I'm just going to give this thing a name. So we'll just call it thing one. All right. Thing one. And then we've got some categories of options: base point options, object options, behavior options, setting options, right? So the base point, where do I want the handle? Where do I want the insertion grip to be when I move this block around? Easiest thing I do is just do a pick point. So I click on pick point, and the cursor tells me to specify the insertion base point. So I'm just going to pick this point right here. My O snaps are on. I'm going to left click, and when I do, it basically records the X, Y, Z coordinates of that pick point. And now I go on to the object part. So specify on screen or select objects. All right. So I'm going to select objects that I want to turn into a block. So again, it says select objects, and I'm just going to draw the green square around it, the green rectangle. I've made my selection, so I hit enter. All right. Now I've confirmed it. I've got a little thumbnail up top of thing one. And the radio buttons underneath basically ask me, do I want to retain the original line work? Do I want to convert my line work into a block when I hit OK? Or do I want to delete this block, or delete the line work rather, and then I will have this block in my memory to insert later in the drawing if I need to. So I'm going to leave it as convert to block. Behavior, I can make this annotative. I can make it so that it scales uniformly, and I can make it so that we allow exploding. I usually leave these on the default, so not going to check annotative, not going to check scale uniformly. Allow exploding, yes, I want to be able to do that in case I need to make any changes. And then any additional settings, we leave this as is. I do not want to open the block editor, although you have that option if you want to make changes right away. So basically we're all set. I'm going to hit OK. And right now the two look the same, right? But if I hover over the line work, you'll notice that it says that it's a block reference. So we have a block. So when I click on the block, you'll notice that there's a blue grip down on the bottom where I have my base point, and I can click on that grip and move my block. Similarly, I click on the group, it puts my base point in the center, and I can move my group. So at this point, there isn't really that much of a difference between groups and blocks. Let's play around with some layers really quick. So layers, if I choose my group and I switch layers, I've got a couple different layers. So the construction layer I have is a green layer, and you'll see that it takes on the properties of the layer that it's on. Let's do the same thing with my block reference. So the block reference was drawn on the object layer. So let's try putting it on the construction layer. So I put it on the construction layer, but you'll notice that it doesn't change colors, right? If I hover over it, you can see that it's on the construction layer, and the layer is controlled, or the color is controlled by the layer, which is a green layer, but it doesn't retain any of the properties from that layer like the group does. All right, so this puts us a little bit at a disadvantage. However, the way to fix this is that when you are drawing a block, unless you want the permanent line work and properties to be retained, you should always draw a block on the zero layer. So in order to do this, we've already drawn the block. And in order to make changes to the block, right, there's basically two things that you can do. One is double click on the block that you just made. That's probably the easiest. So I'm going to double left click, and I get the edit block definition window to pop up. And this is going to open up the block editor. So in my current drawing, I have an architectural tick block and a thing one block. So the thing one block is what I want to change. I hit OK. That brings me into the block editor. All right. So we've got an extra palette here. We've got a different toolbar up top. You notice that we are in the block editor. I want to go all the way over to the home tab and basically put all of this line work on the zero layer. Now it shows zero, but if I click on it, you'll notice it changes to the object, which means it's on the object layer. So I'm going to select all of my line work, and I'm going to place it on the zero layer. Okay, so we can see the line weights have changed. If I hover over it, it says it's on the zero layer. If I click on it, it says I'm on the zero layer. So I've changed the layer that this block is on. And I can go either here to the close block editor, or I can just go back to the block editor and basically do the same thing, close the block editor. I'm going to close it. Do I want to save changes to the block? Yes, I do. So now it retains all the information from whatever layer that this is on. So if I click on my block, now you see it's on the construction layer and it has those properties. If I put it on my center layer or a hidden layer, it'll take on the properties of that particular layer. Now, the other option, let me bring this back to my, let's put on the construction layer. So the second way to make a change to your local block is to explode it, right? So you can go up here to the explode tool, or you can type explode. And I'm going to select my block, and then I'm going to hit enter. And you'll notice that it's exploded because it changed color. It's now on its original layer. We changed that, right? Because it was originally on the object layer. We went into the editor, And the block editor, we changed it to our 0 layer. So now this is all on our 0 layer. If we click, we see the 0 layer there. So if I want to make a change, I can go ahead and make a change. Maybe we stretch this up a little bit. Maybe I want a peak. And I'm just going to grab that. So I've changed my design. And now I go back to insert and I can create a new block, right? Or I can save this as the old block. But let's create a new one. So I'm just going to type the word block, B-L-O-C-K, hit enter. And we're going to do thing 2. And again, pick the point. And maybe this time I pick the center. And select object. So I'm going to select the whole grouping. Hit enter after that. Convert to block, I keep. All of this I keep as is. I hit OK. And now we've got, if we hover over it, it says block reference again. And I can go to the Home tab after I select it and place it on whatever layer it needs to go on. And it now retains that, right? So now that I've created 2 blocks, essentially, right? I created block thingy 1, edited it, exploded it, and we created thingy 2. Now, if I go to my Insert tab and I go to the Insert section, it remembers that we created thing 1 and we have thing 2. So it's keeping track of all the local blocks that we create in this drawing. And I can click and just click and drag it out, and it remembers my original, right? Let's see if I can put it on a different layer. So there's my border layer. So yes, so it remembers all that changed information. And that's it with local blocks.